Hello, I'm Ethan, a New York-based organization development coach, and welcome to my playlist of videos where I take timely deep dive insights into those organizations in the news that may or may not be struggling with their organization culture. So today I want to shine the spotlight on CHUBB Insurance, who is in the news for recently footing the bill for Donald Trump, former president of the United States, recent defamation case against Carroll to the tune of $86 million. And so I was fascinated with, why is CHUBB doing this? And obviously, there's always something in some effort done by some organization for self-benefit, self-gain. So that's something that I wanted to really kind of shine a light on. So what I'd like to do is do a deep dive into what's going on at CHUBB, take a focus on their culture, and see if there's any insight gained as we look at their culture and their background into why they might do this. So let's first of all start off with, who is CHUBB? So CHUBB is the world's largest publicly traded property and casualty insurer. They operate in over 54 countries. So the first thing I always do when I'm looking at an organization in terms of their formal or established culture is to go to some resources to figure out what's going on there. So I typically go to Indeed, Glassdoor, and Comparably to start the journey. So let's take a look at CHUBB. Their CEO, Evan Greenberg, has a 72% favorability rating, which means that employees who took the time to go to Comparably and to give their feedback and evaluative survey information, they're predisposed to be favorable towards his leadership. On a scale of 1, which is not very positive, to 5, which is supremely positive, employees in the aggregate rate CHUBB to be a 3.7 culture. So what does that mean? That's just a starting point. We take a little bit of a look inside the culture of CHUBB. They have a fairly poor, at least representative sampling of feedback in terms of diversity. Their employees' feelings about true meaningful diversity at CHUBB with a C rating. Women at CHUBB have rated their team manager and the perks and benefits from their perspective as being a B-. Now, in terms of a net promoter score, and understand this, when you ask an individual, an employee, how likely would you be to refer a friend or somebody you know to come and join this organization? One is they're passionately hostile towards the organization, say never. 10 is absolutely we would. So CHUBB's favorability or employee net promoter score, because that's what we're talking about, only 38% of all employees surveyed said they would refer somebody. 25%, so on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 is not favorable to promote at all, 10 is completely favorable, 38% answered 9 or 10 on a scale of 1 to 10, favorable. 25% of all employees surveyed on Comparably said that they would refer. So therefore, those are passives. They scored a 7 or an 8. And a detractor, an employee said, absolutely not. I would never refer a friend or somebody I know to CHUBB. They answered on a scale of, from a scale of 1 to 10, they answered 6 or less. So what I want to say by that is that's not positive. That's not positive. When you look at all scores in terms of how employees rated being at CHUBB, they scored CHUBB an overall B-. CEO rating was a B, gender was a B-, and then you can kind of see other scores, diversity, happiness, future outlook is a C. So the overall company culture as defined by employees who work at CHUBB is a B-. Okay, this is all well and good, but what does that really tell us about why CHUBB Insurance would go about handling the bond for the $86 million that Trump owed Carroll in her defamation case against him? So let's kind of start to look at how that might take shape. So let's go to MSN, and Trump is beholden to someone. Here's who's behind company footing the bill for E.G. Carroll's bond, which we know is CHUBB. So many people were asking Evan Greenberg, the CEO of CHUBB, which is a subsidiary of CHUBB Insurance, paid the cash. They gave it to Donald Trump in his bond, the bond that was outstanding, in the New York E. trial defamation settlement. So why? Why would CHUBB do this? And so that's what was really bothering me. And it says, as legal analyst Allison Gill pointed out, Evan Greenberg funded this bond, possibly because of his connections and pre-existing relationship with Donald Trump. So what's the connection? So Donald Trump, as president, brought Evan Greenberg, CEO of CHUBB, in 2018 into his administration onto an advisory committee for trade policy and negotiations. So Evan Greenberg's CEO of CHUBB, his role in this capacity on the advisory committee ended in 2022. So his involvement gapped or transcended from the Trump administration to the Biden administration. So, okay. So you have to start to think about, as I did, CHUBB and CHUBB in terms of culture. And if there was anything else going on that would make me want to think about their culture there. So I want to read something else that I didn't realize when I started going down the rabbit hole with CHUBB. One internet sleuth, political advisor, and researcher pointed to a release from the Rainforest Action Network that actually, through their research, linked CHUBB to its policy on toxic pollutive fuel sources, and also made a straight line connection between CHUBB and current dictator of Russia, Vladimir Putin. So I want to read something. According to this internet sleuth, Greenberg, CEO of CHUBB, talks a big game about CHUBB being for green energy. But RAND, the Rainforest Action Network, went on to explain through their research findings that CHUBB has insurance policies that underwrite the risks of digging new coal mines, building tar sand pipelines, and expanding oil and gas drilling in sensitive ecosystems around the world. So CEO of CHUBB, Evan Greenberg's pro-green talk rings hollow when examining his company's actual business practices. CHUBB insures fossil fuel infrastructure in Russia that is bankrolling Putin's war against Ukraine. And it also funds this oil and gas extraction off the coast of Brazil, exploratory drilling in the Arctic, and other fossil fuel projects globally. So that's CHUBB. So Evan Greenberg has gone on the record repeatedly as saying that CHUBB has no political interest or skin in the game in why they would pay the bond outstanding in Trump's lawsuit in New York. But they've also, Evan Greenberg, CEO of CHUBB and CHUBB Insurance, has gone on record as saying that they're extremely pro-green fuel initiatives. And they're not. They're simply not. So these are some of the things that I think about. Century Indemnity Company was another CHUBB subsidiary behind helping the Boy Scouts of America when they were forced to file for bankruptcy back in 2020. The group was being sued and facing allegations from about 1,700 people who said that Boy Scout troop leaders sexually abused them. So there's CHUBB behind the scenes supporting a morally questionable organization, the Boy Scouts of America, in terms of a class action lawsuit. All these individuals, 1,700, who claimed that their Boy Scout troop leaders had sexually abused them. And there's CHUBB. So now I want to get to Evan Greenberg. So we don't take sides. Evan Greenberg, CEO of CHUBB, the company that guaranteed Trump's, they say, $92 million bond to his shareholders. So I want to play this a little bit.
A nearly $92 million bond after losing his defamation case brought by writer E.G. Carroll. Trump has asked that the judgment against him be paused. Now, the judge has ordered Carroll's attorneys to respond to Trump's request by today and said if Carroll opposes the arrangements, he will hear arguments this afternoon. ABC's investigative reporter Olivia.
So just to give you a little bit of background, that was what was going on before the judge issued the findings in E. Jean Carroll's defamation lawsuit. Let's talk about CHUBB. Okay. This is CHUBB CEO Evan Greenberg sent a letter to customers of CHUBB Insurance, agents, brokers, and investors who inquired about this bond that they issued. So he sent out this formal communication to all of the vested stakeholders that interact with CHUBB on a fairly regular basis. As the surety, we don't take sides. It would be wrong for us, CHUBB, to do so. And we are in no way supporting the defendant, Donald J. Trump. We are supporting and are part of the justice system plumbing, included in this case, the letter from Evan Greenberg said, when CHUBB issues an appeal bond, it isn't making judgments about the claims, even when the claims involve alleged reprehensible conduct. Okay, let's keep going. Tell me what else that you're thinking of. Evan Greenberg, CEO of CHUBB. I fully realize how polarizing and emotional this case and the defendant are, and how easy it would be for CHUBB to just say no. However, we support the rule of law and our role in it. We considered this the right thing to do, and we frankly left our own personal feelings aside, this letter continued. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. It's as if this organization, as does almost any other organization that's not enlightened yet in the 21st century, thinks that they can somehow extricate the impact or the outcomes of their decision societally in terms of saying we were just, operating in a non-political, non-emotionally charged environment. We were making decisions for pure business rationale. And that can't happen anymore in the 21st century organization. So CHUBB itself has issued two statements, one of which then went on to clarify CEO Greenberg's appointment to a trade advisory panel that I just mentioned by then President Trump back in 2018. Evan Greenberg was appointed to the advisory committee in 2018 along with other people. He served in the committee under both the Trump and Biden administrations until 2022, until March 23, the statement went on to say. So at some point, I've been at this for 15 years now, trying to work with organizations to talk to them about building amazing workplace cultures and the interconnectedness of their internal culture, their people, and how they do or do not put their employees front and center in terms of creating an amazing, great workplace, but also the interactivity between the organization and its communities in which its employees live and are volunteering and spending their time. So one should understand, if they're a senior executive at CHUBB, that these kinds of decisions are never neutral, that there's an impact in terms of the greater external environment in which the organization operates. And from the perspective of an employee of CHUBB, the question that begs asking is, how does this make you feel? Do you care at all about these kind of behaviors? So let's kind of dig a little bit deeper. So I want to move on to businessinsurance.com. So Evan Greenberg, CEO of CHUBB, writes to customers about the Trump bond. So this is a little bit further analysis. CHUBB Limited Chairman and CEO of Evan Greenberg wrote to the insurer's customers to explain the company's decision to issue a surety bond for Donald Trump, guaranteeing the $83.3 million verdict in the defamation case brought by writer E. Jean Carroll against the former president, Donald J. Trump. The letter was issued after CHUBB came under scrutiny. The letter was issued after CHUBB came under scrutiny following the disclosure last week that it had provided the means to allow former President Trump to meet a deadline to post a bond while he appealed the judgment. Ms. Carroll sought damages for Mr. Trump after he accused her of lying when she said that he raped her in the mid-1990s. Okay, so Mr. Greenberg said that he had been aware of customers' concerns over Chubb providing the bond to Mr. Trump. So now you may be thinking, well done, CEO of Chubb, for responding to concerns expressed by your customers, but hold off a value judgment. This is what the letter in part said. I fully realize how polarizing and emotional this case and the defendant are and how easy it would be for Chubb to just say no. However, we support the rule of law and our role in it. We consider this the right thing to do, really. And we frankly left our own personal feelings aside. Well done. Well done, Evan Greenberg. He said the bond would ensure that Ms. Carroll would be paid if Mr. Trump's appeal is unsuccessful. Oh, okay. When Chubb issues an appeal bond, it isn't making judgments about the claims, even when the claims involve alleged reprehensible conduct. We, like you, leave judgment to the courts. And our bond serves the important purpose of facilitating the legal process. He said, okay, well done, Chubb, champions of the U.S. legal justice system. He also indicated that the bond was fully collateralized. Well, what does that mean according to the CEO? If the bond is called, then Chubb takes the collateral, which is intended to make us whole. We hardly support or subsidize defendants or take one for the team, Mr. Greenberg said. Really, really fascinating. This is a really, really fascinating way to think about the interplay between an organization, CHUBB Insurance, its senior leadership team, in this case, its CEO, its employees, their internal stakeholders, and I would argue the most important set of individuals any organization is responsible for performing for, and also its constituent external stakeholders, in this case, clients, through this letter that was issued. In a letter to shareholders in 2019, Evan Greenberg said to the United States brand of nationalism, as articulated by our leadership, had damaged the country's credibility on the world stage. Fascinating. If that's what you're drawing attention to, Evan Greenberg, the concern on the world stage of what the United States' reputation is, then it might be interesting to rethink your lack of moral clarity and fiber regarding fuel initiatives all over the world and your funding ongoing initiatives to support oil and gas extraction, the destruction of virgin land, the lack of true, genuine commitment to green energy. So supporting Vladimir Putin in a war in which he slaughtered and murdered Ukrainians, and there's been nearly 480,000 claimed dead Russian soldiers, and the tens of thousands of war atrocities. Interesting line in the sand. Very interesting. So the last is I want to go to Salon to touch on an article that Donald Trump panic mode is setting in after Trump was counting on Chubb to put up the fraud bond. So understand that 86 or $91 million bond that CHUBB Insurance handled, that was not the totality of Donald J. Trump's legal exposure in the E. Jean Carroll defamation lawsuit. So former President Trump is in panic mode as the deadline has now approached. It is now approached for him to secure a $500 million bond to appeal the civil fraud judgment, CNN reports. So Trump's lawyers themselves admitted that just this week that he was unable to secure the bond that was necessary to appeal the ruling despite approaching 30 different underwriters. So here's where it gets interesting. Privately, Trump had been counting on Chubb, which underwrote his $91.6 million bond to cover the E. Jean Carroll judgment, to come through to help him. But Chubb, the insurance giant, informed his attorneys in the last several days that that option was off the table, according to CNN, which tells me if it's off the table, was it on the table? And that's where I kind of ended my Alice down the rabbit hole with this whole CHUBB Insurance and Donald J. Trump connection. So Alan Garten, a lawyer for the Trump Organization, had said in the filing that Chubb was the only company that was willing to consider underwriting an appeal bond secured by a blend of liquid assets and real property, according to CNBC, while other companies wanted only cash or other liquid assets. Chubb was actively negotiating. Let me kind of read this a little bit slowly. Chubb was actively negotiating with Trump, but within the last week, this is recent, this is like just this past week, the company reversed course and notified defendants that it could not accept real property as collateral, according to Carroll. This is problematic on so many fronts. It really is. And so what I want to do as we wrap up this video is this. I want to draw a straight line through. An organization acts. It acts in certain ways. And those acts, those behaviors that it exhibits has an impact. They all have impact. They have impact first and foremost, as I've been claiming through my consulting career with my clients. When an organization acts, it first and fundamentally acts in such a way that it impacts its relationship with its employees. That's first and foremost. Next, once you get outside of the organization and you start as an organization to interact with your constituent stakeholders, clients, the media, regulatory environment, all those external groups of individuals that your actions, behaviors touch, there's an interplay. There's a consideration of a very real organic moment by moment life cycle between in the organization and out. And that's the responsibility of leadership, to ensure that even when things go wrong, even when challenges arise, even when there's chaos and uncertainty, that you act in the best interest of maintaining a stellar organizational culture. You act in a way that maintains a high reputational brand and maintains relationship consistency. So I hope you found this timely update to be relevant. If you did, please smash the subscribe button, share this, be sure to like it, and come back frequently to this playlist of organizations doing great culture work, because I'll be constantly shining a light on those organizations that are in the news, ripped from today's headlines, of organizations that are struggling to fix their culture and those that have also built amazing workplace cultures. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to check this out.